And you're just in time for Business Glide, your go-to point on matters public policy analysis, business, and economics at large. I'm Richard Mwenja. Welcome on board. Today we're having a conversations around revitalizing Kenya's sugar sector. That is the sleeping giant in Kenya's economy. And I have Professor Herman Manyora to help me bring this conversation home. How better we can go ahead with the revitalization plans of our sugar sector. Prof, great to see you.
Great.
How are you doing?
Oh, wonderful.
All right. You come from Western Kenya. And over the last few days, we've seen the row that has erupted from the proposed plan by the government to list Nzoia Sugar Company. And not just Nzoia Sugar Company. We've been having these conversations about privatizing our public sugar mills, getting them into private lands, just so to make some business sense out of it. But this far, looking at the outrage that has come from this conversation, do you believe that getting our sugar mills into private hands is the surest way to revitalize the sector in the first place?
I don't think so. This is just conmanship.
Conmanship?
Just thefts of public resources. Yeah.
You seem to be borrowing heavily from the reservations of Edwin Sifuna, the senator, that this is just an attempt to grab public land and steal from the public. And he's accusing just one try the proposed investor and President William Ruto. Why is land grabbing an issue that goes hand in hand when Ruto is in the same sentence?
Well, you should have to ask him. I don't know. I don't know whether it is even true. You know, he's my president. I must have reservations about what I say.
I get it, Prof. But then again, let's make sense of it. This is a conversation we've had before with you. And you've said it's high time that probably we diversify even the crops we are farming as Western farmers. Sugar is no longer feasible and viable for us as an economy. Do you still hold that conversation?
Of course. You know, some people argued that why don't we remove sugar and grow marijuana? Watu wapande bangi too.
Marijuana?
Yeah, kama dawa. It's a serious business. And it will be done in this country at some point. By the time you begin growing marijuana or bangi, as my friend Professor Gachagua says, by the time it will have become a useless crop, everybody will have grown it. Those who are growing now are making a kill in the way Gachagua was telling you. But we don't take serious things seriously until some white people come and tell us, feasibility studies, hapa weka bangi nini. That will be 30 years from now. It will be a useless crop by that time. But we shall plant. Back to your question. It is true. Sugar, in the manner in which we grow it and manage it and produce and everything, belongs to the past. You cannot grow sugar in the way we grow on lands that are depleted, both in size and in fertility, and expect to be in serious business of sugar. You cannot compete anybody else who produces sugar. When you are doing 1 acre, what you are producing from that 1 acre, somebody in Madagascar is producing what you are producing times 10. That's why we have been asking the commercial people to defer. I don't know where we are now. Because if any other sugar comes in from the commercial region, to enjoy the benefits of tariffs, reduced or non-tariff, because they are in commercial, we cannot sell even a kilo of meat. The cost of producing sugar here is just too high. The husbandry, how we take care of sugar in this country, the land we have put sugar production to, can no longer produce sugar. It's no longer fertile. When Mumia's people started doing sugar, a family could put aside 10 acres for sugar, 5 acres, some 20 acres. Hawa watu wamekuwa kizaa. Those people from the 1970s, it was around 1970 when Mumia started, around that area. Those children who are there have become fathers, they have become grandfathers, and they are becoming great-grandfathers. The same parcel of land is being divided and subdivided and subdivided. You no longer have enough land to do sugarcane in Mumias and Bungoma, those areas. It's not viable. The lands themselves are so depleted in fertility, you cannot. And our knowledge of how to take care of sugar is so poor that we cannot. So it might be reasonable for us to bite the bullet and say, what can we do with this land as it is today? And if Kenya must continue producing sugar, where else can we produce sugar economically? Where? Where do we still have land like in Tana River, where we can produce sugar on large scale, which can compete with sugar from Comesa? That is a conversation. But we never want that conversation because cheap politicians in those sugar growing zones, they are so cheap, they want to get votes. Oh, Mumia, so and so, yeah. I don't support the sale of this because look, like in Zoya, they say they have 24,000 land, nucleus. The nucleus is a land that is with where the factory is. There is land that belongs to that factory. In other words, when farmers don't have enough cane, this nucleus, this central place that belongs to the factory, will feed the factory with sugar so that you produce optimally.
Yeah.
If a machine is meant to crush 10 tons, just for example,
sure,
of course it's thousands of tons. Let's just say 100 tons per day. To crush 40 tons is a disaster economically. It's a big waste. Yeah. So you must maintain that 100 tons per day. How do you ensure that? You have that nucleus. For Mumias, it's a lot of land. I don't know how much. But if you pass there, then you can see what I'm talking about. For Nzoia, it is 24,000 acres. Now, this man who has been given the factory to run, part of the deal includes that 24,000. So if you calculate how much he's paying per year for 30 years, therefore how much he's paying per day or per month, it's laughable. It reminds me like someone in the same press conference. Was it Sifuna or Omtata? Pan paper.
Webuye.
Producing paper. When I was a young man from school, I worked there as a casual when it was starting many years ago. And the smelly town of Webuye. But that smell was bringing livelihood. They gave this man for a song. He promised to continue doing paper. He never did it. It was a lie. He just was using it as a go down. What was he timing? The land. If you look at the cost at which he bought that pan paper, if you look at land and the property, I don't want to go in that direction because one day I was on TV, my father told, my late father these barrels will come for you. Do you know how much pan paper owed? Even in Nairobi, in many other places.
Assets.
It's not just, even if you were to get scrap, the machinery, you were scrap.
Yeah, metal.
Is much more than what he paid. And the leaders of Western were just there. That's why I agree with Natembea. These people who call themselves leaders of Luyas, what happens in some of those areas cannot happen elsewhere. Go and do it in Central. If there was something like that in Central, you go and sell it. We see if you'll sell it. So Luyas don't have leaders. But let me tie this to your question.
Sure.
Whether it is viable. Let me also use pan paper. Given the dynamics of the paper industry globally, and given other factors, it was not even going to be viable to produce paper in Webuye.
In the first place?
Yes. Yet, even government itself had planted millions of acres, if not hundreds of thousands or hundreds of thousands of acres. My father worked with the forest, I know, of trees to feed pan paper. When you see those pines and other trees, special pines, they were meant for pan paper. So they are there. And yet I'm saying the paper product, it was easier to import paper than to produce. Where was the thinking from the people you call leaders, both at the national and at the local level? You see, what is killing this country is thinking has no space on the table. It's only greed. And I'm seeing it anywhere, everywhere I go. Wherever I end up, some places where I'm doing my hustle, nobody wants to think. Everybody just wants to steal.
Theft?
Just to steal. Even if they put thinking into the game, they will get even more money in their pockets. Their own pockets. But nobody wants to think. I argued long time ago, and I was basing myself on the pollution of Webuye. I said, is this viable? Even the pollution alone. Is it worth it? My thinking was, Webuye ought to have been turned into a timber town. timber town where anything timber in East Africa would be from Webuye. And it's linked to the rail line. Iko railway. Anything timber, what Rai is doing and the rest, anything to do with wood, value addition on wood, anything you want, mnataka plywood, mnataka blockboard, mnataka nini,
Webuye.
the best furniture in Kenya would be found in Webuye. Why? When you are seated in Webuye, you see huge trucks carrying logs and the beams.
True.
Timber from where? Congo.
Congo?
Yes. The best wood inaenda Mombasa, inaenda na meli. Miti ambaye Mungu aliweka Congo forest imekaa, mti imekaa mwaka 1000 ikiwa hapo. There are trees that have been there for hundreds of years and they are standing. Zingine zimeanguka tu chini, hata zijakauka.
They have outlived their time.
That is what Webuye would have been getting from DRC. And value adding, getting the best furniture you need, anything timber, anything wood would come from Webuye. Webuye would be one of the richest towns. But do we have leaders?
So even that,
do we have people who think? So even as they talk about sugar, even that sugar alone, you just suck the liquid inside. There's a word, this syrup, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Syrup, or there's a word they use. They just call it that water in the sugar.
True, yeah.
Well, we are not Englishmen. That water, you suck it and the rest you throw away. In the 21st century. That's all. Look, you suck the liquid, the word is coming and getting lost. You suck the liquid, and everything else goes away. Then you make it sugar.
Weak value chain.
There is no value addition. There is no utilization of byproducts. Hizo vitu unanyonya ndani.
Yeah.
Can they be used to do something? When you are harvesting sugar, the green, can we make animal feed? Look, today the world is a knowledge economy. People who do not put knowledge to use, people who do not put thinking into what they are doing, will soon disappear from the face of this world.
Extinction.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we will soon disappear. And some of these countries are going to become once again slave colonies. You know, there were slave colonies.
True.
Or slave islands like Cuba.
True.
Where everybody there was just a slave, working on sugar and what have you. Coming back to your sugar. That's where we are headed. So the story of sugar is that story demonstrates the lack of thinking in this country, the lack of patriotism, the lack of leadership, that the leadership in Western Kenya must know. We cannot currently cling on to sugar. We must look for better alternatives. But why is sugar not productive and yet we are clinging on it as a country? Sugar is like drugs, like somebody said in the same interview.
Addiction.
Someone said, no. Money. There are sugar barons and the drug barons. Why do you think people know this animal has no milk and they are keeping it?
Sugar barons.
Do you know why? Because you produce sugar here even if you know it's not profitable. Then it reaches somewhere, you create shortage. Every year there's first of all, two things happen.
Sugar crisis.
Correct. Every year, factories close at the same time. Sometimes ordered by, most time, like last time, ordered by the government. Close, all of you.
Artificial hoarding?
No, close. Oh, there's enough sugar to crash.
Yeah.
It used to be maintenance. How can all factories close at the same time?
The coincidence.
So, during that time, it's supposed to be shortage. Secondly, there is this calculation they have. Kenya produces so much.
Metric tons.
So much consumption, so much deficit. I remember I was at Pan Africa Hotel, a group of very serious people. They regretted inviting me. I asked them, Who calculated this deficit? How did you arrive at this deficit?
You questioned sugar stakeholders?
Yes. It was a very serious meeting. I remember at Pan Africa Hotel. Everybody in the room was shaking. Until one white girl asked me, by the way, how did you arrive at that question? That was her question. How did you arrive at that question? I asked her, but that should be the first question. How did we arrive at this deficit that is always there? It's a lie. So why is that the case? And why am I saying that's why we grow sugar? Even if we know it's not profitable. During such a shortage, put the shortage in quotes.
In quotes.
Shortage.
Deficit.
People are given permits to bring sugar at concessional terms, with concessional terms, which includes mainly tax-free.
Landing costs and everything else.
In one go, within 30 days or 60 days, guys have made their billions, and you can open your factories. The shortage is over.
In a single financial year?
Which year? We don't talk about a year. It's a question of months. By the time they are getting the permits, the sugar is already almost near Mombasa. You remember the scandal of the maize?
Yeah.
Sometimes back.
Brazil.
People are being given,
yeah.
people are being permit, but the maize is already in Mombasa. How did it come within a day? Kwani ndege?
It was mark timing.
It is business. So every year, there are people who make billions from sugar. Every year. Of late, I've not heard it very well. I don't know. It's a story that's very sad. I don't want to follow every time. That's why we still grow sugar. For those reasons I've given you.
Finally, Prof. So even from this heated pressure from a section of Western leaders regarding the leasing of Nzoia Sugar Company, yes, you still believe that was just empty political rhetoric to make political fraud out of it?
Yes.
They had the best interest of
all of them, Tata, Sifuna, they're just doing politics.
Normal politics?
They know. And Umtata is in the building. They know. Sugar is no longer a source of livelihood. And you know, leadership is important. If you read the Bible, the Quran, if you read all books of history,
sure,
there is always a place for leadership in society. And there is always a place for leadership, including the taboos. They were created by old men sitting down and saying, watu wakiendelea kukula hii kitu. Hii kitu watu tuseme ni mbaya kwa dini na mambo mengine. Because it is medical. There's a problem. But they think for society. Even when sugar had money, where was the leadership to see where we were going?
Forethought.
That in another 30, 40 years, there will be no land for sugar. Because subdivision is allowed by law and by tradition and by culture. So where will the Wanga people of Mumias be in sugar production in the year 2021? Where was the leadership to see that it will not be viable? Because shamba itaendelea kupasuliwa vipande vidogo vidogo.
Yeah.
Where was the leadership then? Secondly, when sugarcane was bringing money, people were just buying baskets and marrying women.
Nothing beyond that.
Yes. Where was the leadership to help society, the community, harness this resource into useful economic activities?
Sustainability. That
is supposed to be leadership. That our people have never handled money. Now for the first time, a farmer is being given a bundle of notes. Stories were told of people being chained on beds by prostitutes. Live and money you had during tea bonus, coffee bonus, sugar.
Women from even Moranga.
Yes, you find them there. That is where leadership comes in. Not these stupid press conferences of Umtata and Sifuna. This is not leadership. Leadership is 1970, 71, 72. For the leadership of Western to have seen this land was going to be depleted. How are we going to transition the people? How could we help come up with county council bylaws to manage land by way of subdivision and what have you? How are we even going to help families? Let's say a family has 50 acres. How are we going to help make a law where at least 10 will always be for sugar and they will never be subdivided for the children? That is the thinking that is missing in this country. And when the money came, I'm telling you, it was very sad. That money never helped the people of Mumias. They had never handled money. By the time watu wanajaribu kuerevuka, the sugarcane is already a disaster. So, yes, anybody from Western Province is just playing cheap politics.
Well, there you have it from Professor Herman Manyora. We've been discussing matters to do with the sugar sector in Kenya and how we can better spearhead reforms in that particular front. Time now for a fan of the week. It is none other than this gentleman, Gideon Tanui from Kapkoi Saisol.
Kapkoi Saisol.
Yeah, sure.
Gideon Tanui. Chamwe Gideon. And thank you very much.
All right, Kongoi, Gideon Tanui. Until you get to do this again on Business Glide, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Up next on your screen is the Business Glide African Proverb of the Day.